Hello, I'm Joel Blackford with Beth Hesed Sabbath Fellowship. And please call 612-315-6778 before you arrive because we would not be meeting yet. I haven't found a new building. We're going to have to move. We do the philosophy of eschatology, what you need to know, your reality, our existence. This one's going to be a deep one. I hope we won't be disparate. I hope we will at least make some sense today. But this is a tough one. We're Beth Hesed Sabbath Fellowship. So here's the topic basically. The Antichrist seems to be burned. The false prophet is burned. Satan is burned in the end. But Gog is buried. He's not burned. So why is that? Why are some people buried? Some people burned? Why are some people given a watery grave? What's going on? Now I'm going to include a couple of rabbinic sources and a couple of pagan sources, Hammurabi's Code notably, just because we need to discuss this in terms of what was general knowledge at the time that the Bible was written. And in many cases, the pagans agreed with the godly. So just keep that in mind. So the reason why I couldn't record it right away, like last Sunday when I normally try to record, is I couldn't get a handle on this one. This one's a tough one, people. And I think I have, or we have, some of the smartest listeners out there. This is a tough topic. So turn away right now if you can't handle deep dives. So, in fact, I asked this scholar just a few minutes ago, and he said, okay, why did you do that to me? I don't even want to go there. So, so anyway, and I won't tell you who he is. So, the Korach rebellion. So that's what I was reading. That was our parsha for this week. And, you know, it's very interesting. Korach didn't seem to be burned, but his 250 people were burned. And then God takes their fire pans that are made out of, we'll call it copper. It could be brass, bronze, copper, nakash, whatever. And he forms them into the brazen altar, the top of it. So it's like, what's going on here? Why burn the people? Why can't he just bury the people? Well, he kind of buried them too. I mean, he puts them into a hole and covers them up and burns them too. So why, you know? And why did God reject Nadav and Abihu? Oh, nice guys, sons of Aaron, firstborn, secondborn, dead. Not only dead, completely burned to a crisp. Okay, why? And so you have to reconcile these verses in terms of it's okay. So Ananias and Sapphira, they walk in and they lie and they die, but they die and they are buried. They are not, and it was a lie, but it was a lie enough to die, but they were not burned. Okay, so here's Sodom and Gomorrah. You know, he rains down fire and brimstone on Sodom and Gomorrah. So what did they do over and above to deserve fire and brimstone, say opposed to some other people that just die? So in Egypt, they had a plague of hail, but it doesn't seem to have killed that many people, if any at all, maybe some animals. And so ultimately, why did Pharaoh have to die in the way that he died, which is basically he wasn't buried, he was drowned and had a watery grave. So what's going on with that? So obviously that has to do with Moses in Egypt down there. So as always, we do the philosophy of eschatology. We're talking about people being burned today, why some are buried, why some are burned, and it's not as easy as you think. It's not. So the philosophy of the end of days. And you'll see some of these pieces if we're still alive. So let's look at one of the oldest stories, which happens to be Tamar. She realizes that Judah didn't give her the third child. The first one died and the second one died. And so he, by the Levirate law, he was supposed to give her the third son, and he didn't. So then Tamar dressed up as a whore and or hooker or whatever, and she was more righteous than Judah because she deserved to have a child. And so he did conceive with her. Then he wanted to burn her, but she proved that he was the problem, and so he had the right to burn her. He did, based on the law. And it was pagan or godly, either way, you'll see. But it's very bizarre how he had the right to burn her, but yet she was righteous and she was found righteous. And there are tests also in the Bible. I'll explain that way at the end that goes through it. But anyway, you can see that Yeshua comes from there. David comes from there. So we need Tamar in the story, you know. And there's Shua, there's Er, there's Onan, and we won't even talk about Onan because that's Onan's disease, and you could look it up yourself. So the main thing is that there's a righteousness, but there's also a code that talks about burning, and we'll talk about Leviticus and what the code is. So it is troubling. So basically, here's two of the cases where you can burn somebody. Okay, if a daughter as a priest behaves like a prostitute, a zona in the Hebrew, she's burned to death. So first, if an ish take a wife, so a man takes a wife and her daughter, and it is zimna, it is wickedness, and they shall be burned with Aish. So Ish is man, Aish is fire. Isha, which sounds similar, is woman, and woman is kind of a fiery woman. So both he and they, there should be no zimna, no wickedness among you. So basically, if a man is stupid enough to take a wife and her daughter uh, into the same marriage bed, all three of them are burned, because obviously the wife had a part in this too, and but they're all three burned. Okay, it's rare, but there it is. Okay, and there's no record of this ever occurring, but it's a law. And the daughter of any Cohen, if she profane herself by playing the zona, she profaneth her Av, okay, she shall be burned with, she profanes her father Av, okay, she shall be burned with Aish. Again, okay, so there it is, both, and I wanted you to see it in the Hebrew. Aish is fire, and so she's burned. So if she plays this zona, as I mentioned, which is basically a prostitute, you're allowed to burn her to death. She is the daughter of a Cohen. Now, I want you to stick with this thought, because I think this is going to play through as we move towards the daughter of Babylon. I think that's the connection. Now, I could be wrong, but I'd like you to see it. So here's a bunch of verses. We'll go through them. You've seen the repeats already. So the man takes the wife and the mother. It's wickedness. They're burnt to the fire. That's Leviticus 20. Okay. Then the daughter of any priest. You just saw that. And this guy, and I'm not sure who the guy is, but it's Christian Brutalities. He says, that he compares it to Tamar, playing the harlot there. Well, she could have been burned, but she wasn't, and so, but it did work by the law. Technically, Judah was before Leviticus was given, but there was something going on in the world, and we'll discuss that. So here's another case. Here's Achan. So Achan takes some of the booty from the moon town, which was Jericho, Urek, and it's the moon town, and he takes some of the stuff and he buries it, and God says, no, you're going to burn him with fire. You're going to burn everything that he has, including Achan, his sons, his daughters, his animals. First they were stoned and then burned with fire. Okay, so why? I'll argue in this case it's rebellion. Okay, like when they complain too much, this guy's opinion is burn incense without license, dabble in astrology, or make God angry or jealous or something. And sometimes God burns people to identify a prophet or to identify himself, and sometimes for no reason at all. That's wrong. I highlighted that in pink because that does not work. God has a reason. We don't understand the reason at all. That's our problem, okay? So here's again Nadab and Abihu, the sons of Aaron, taking the censer and put the fire in, offered strange fire before the Lord. It seems as though, and now this is going to be bizarre, but I'll show it to you later on again. There is a verse in Revelation 14 that talks about the angel of fire. Did you know that? I didn't know that, and I consider myself to be an expert on Revelation. I didn't know there's an angel of fire, and but chapter 14 is very difficult anyway. So they died, and so fire came out from God, and He burnt them to a crisp. According to my rabbinic friends, He really burned them and charred them. There was nothing hardly left at all, just their clothing. And when the people complained, and the clothing was holy. So once again, just like Korach, where they're burned, but their fire pans are reutilized, the clothing was fine. The bodies were gone. So just keep that in mind. So here's another one, Numbers 11. And when the people complained, and it displeased the Lord, and the Lord heard, and with his anger it was kindled, and the fire of the Lord burnt among them and consumed them that were in the uttermost parts of the camp. So why? So this is, again, the guy, Christian Brutalities at WordPress, because he doesn't understand this, and he's not really going to try to reconcile it. He just goes, that's brutal. Well, it's not brutal. It is holiness. And so we have to look at the verses and try to figure out what the holiness issue is. And there came fire from the Lord and consumed the 250. So here's Korach, okay? And so it doesn't say that it consumed Korach. It just says that it consumed the 250. These are Levites, okay? So they are like priests, and they're consumed. Okay, so are we seeing a pattern? Not necessarily, but we're seeing something. They have moved me to jealousy with that which is not God, for a fire kindled in mine anger, and shall be burned in the lowest hell, and shall consume the earth with her increase, and set on fire the foundations of the mountains. They shall be burnt with hunger and devoured with burning heat, and with bitter destruction. I will also send the teeth of beasts upon them, and the poison of serpents of the dust. Okay, so that's Deuteronomy 32. So you don't know this about me, but Deuteronomy 32 is one of the most complex chapters in the Bible. It's Hazinu. It is about Moses. It's a song. It's at the end. It's very similar again to what you find in Revelation. Isn't it 14, the Song of Moses? I can't remember. I think it's 14. Very complex, but it is interesting. So who are the they? He doesn't say who has moved him to jealousy with that which is not God. Okay, but he does say he's going to burn them. And interesting, in the lowest hell. Okay, so that's Deuteronomy 32. Now Psalm 21:9. Some of the best stuff comes from the Psalms. So thou shalt make them as a fiery oven in the time of thine anger, and the Lord shall swallow them up in his wrath, and fire shall devour them. Okay, there you go. Now, here's a daughter of Babel. So this is Isaiah 47, and it starts out with a daughter of Babel, and we'll read that in a couple of slides here. Let now astrologers, the stargazers, the monthly prognosticators, stand up and save thee from these things that shall come upon thee. Behold, they shall be as stubble, and the fire shall burn them, and they shall not deliver themselves from the power of the flame. The intriguing thing is the monthly prognosticators. I have some friends that, well, maybe not loosely I state friends. One of them has issues, emotional issues on her arms, so she has blisters and things like that. She is one of the worst prognosticators out there. Everything is stressful. Everything is a rapture date, and she's constantly writing and venting, and now she's sickly. She's got all sorts of problems. You don't want to be a rapture date predictor. It's just not a good idea. It's not a good job plan. So just keep that in mind. So, so basically these people, behold, they shall be a stubble, the fire shall burn them, and they shall not deliver themselves from the power of the flame. Isaiah 47 again, okay? So then, if I be a man of God, oh, I love this. This is Eliyahu. Fire came down from heaven and consumed thy 50, and there came fire down from heaven again and consumed him his 50. And the third 50 show up and say, hey, we're just under orders here. Don't burn us, okay? So Eliyahu called down fire, okay? And these guys were regular soldiers. There wasn't anything special. They weren't wholly set apart or anything like that, because he didn't burn the last 50. Therefore, thus saith the Lord God, as the vine tree among the trees of the forest, which I have given out of the fuel for fire, I will give to the inhabitants of Jerusalem, and I will set my face against them, and they shall go out from one fire, and another fire shall devour them, and you shall know that I am the Lord. That's Ezekiel 15. I don't know what to do with that. Okay, this one's interesting, and this might help a little bit. This is Isaiah 24. So once again, Isaiah 24 through Isaiah 27 are the chapters that really sound like Revelation. If you're a Jew, that's your Revelation, other than Daniel. I mean, Daniel's incredible for Revelation. I mean, it literally matches up, step by step with Revelation. So the land lies defiled under its inhabitants because they have transgressed the teachings, the Torah, okay? Changed the law, okay? So those are laws you don't understand. You just have to keep them, okay? And broken the everlasting covenant. That's the Brit Olam. That's important. That's a big word right there, a phrase. Therefore hath the curse devoured the earth, and they shall dwell therein, are desolate. Therefore the inhabitants of the earth are burned, and few men left. Okay, so during the end times, the inhabitants of the earth are going to be burned, and few men are going to be left. Okay, and it's the land defiled. So there's something to do with the land too. Okay, so I didn't give you any answers, so I just gave you verses. We're going to do some analysis here, but we're going to use this guy, Shaul Bar. So Bar would be son, but in Aramaic, and Shaul would be Paul, basically, okay? And I think he's Orthodox. It doesn't matter. He's citing very good sources. So here's the first couple of pages here. He's really saying it's due to illicit sex. That's when you get to burn people in the Hebrew Bible and in other cases. Okay, so illicit sex found in the Bible and the Code of Hammurabi. And he's citing that it had to be the oral Torah prior to the written Torah because they were burning people prior to the Torah, as we mentioned with Judah and Tamar and others. Okay, well, Sodom and Gomorrah. Okay, burning cleansed the land according to him, And I'm not going to argue with that. I think that is an important point. Okay, so moving forward, I highlighted here because there's so much to read. Basically, if you dared to enter the sanctuary with something foreign, or those who openly challenged God's purpose, you're burnt. Okay? But not always. Sometimes it's even more than that. And then if you defile the Father, whether God the Father or your Father, but he's regarded as holy, and now he's profane, you're going to burn. Okay? And then adultery. So he cites here that Judah was the head of the household, so he was the Cohen of his family, so he had the right to burn her based on that law. Okay? So normally what Jews did, and many societies did, was they would excommunicate. Um, Even Babylonian law said the same thing. Okay, so adulterers were thrown into water and a place associated with the unburied dead. So we're going to talk about that enough today. So you're going to see there's the buried dead, which is good, and the unburied dead, which is bad. Okay, and so he cites again that Tamar was technically the daughter of Judah, but really the daughter of Shem. She was a Shemite. And so the daughter of a priest, if she profanes herself by playing the harlot. So Judah was technically right. If she's a daughter of Shem, a priest, and she profanes and plays the harlot, he has the right to burn her. But he couldn't. Here's the story down below of Achan. He stole the devoted things. Whatever they happened to be, they were devoted, wholly devoted to paganism, the moon god, so to speak. And so he had to be, so Israel pelted with stones and burned them in the fire and stoned them with stones, according to, he was burned because having stolen the devoted things, whatever that happens to be. Okay, so once again, devoted things. And then all of his daughters, sons, livestock, everything, all of his possessions burned with him. Okay, the family and the possessions had not sinned, but the family was not executed but taken to the executions. Yeah, that's just midrash. So basically, there's a community solidarity. Transgressions are against the entire community, and sometimes you have to be burned for that. Continuing on with this man's article, death by fire long ago in the first millennium was known from Mari. As in Egypt, we read in Mari about the punishment of burning as a result of treason by burning the guilty together with his family. So if it's treasonous, the whole family. Okay, and it looks like many cultures agreed with this. Egyptian texts and Babylonian texts, treason, whole family, burn. Okay, when people were burnt, it meant that they were not buried. To remain unburied was a curse. In the first century, the second century, the first millennium, the second millennium, and continuing on really to this day, if you are unburied, it's a curse. Non-burial was worse than death because the spirit of the dead could not find rest and would never reach the underworld or the ancient world. And so burial was proper, non-burial, and we'll discuss that. You know, you're talking to me right now, you're muttering under your breath, well, my mother or my grandmother was cremated. That is technically non-burial. Just process it yourself. I'm not going to comment much more on that. Okay, the fact that non-burial was a curse appears in the War of Words between David and Goliath. So here's a nice source to prove this through. The Philistine curses David and promises he will give your flesh to the birds of the sky and the beasts of the field. That's like saying you're not going to be buried. Not to be outdone, David counters him with, I will strike you down and cut off your head, and I will give the carcasses of the Philistine camp to the birds of the sky and the beasts of the earth. Again, the curse here is to not be buried so that the spirit will wander aimlessly. Okay, so that's David and Goliath. Very interesting. Okay, so once again, the curse of non-burial is also found in extra biblical sources. So I don't know, the vassal treaties of Esarhaddon. Boy, oh boy, oh boy. Let dogs and pigs eat your flesh. So, and may your spirit have no one to take care of, and pour libation to him. So basically, may the earth not receive your body for burial. May the bellies of the dogs and pigs be your burial place. The victorious kings use this, you know, that you're either going to be buried or unburied. If you lose this war, you're not going to be buried, and you're going to be given to dogs and pigs and birds and vultures and things like that. So this works across the Bible, because we'll see the birds and the animals eating Gog and his forces at the end there. So it seems to work in pagan cultures and in godly cultures. It's cited frequently. Okay, so let's continue on. This Joseph story. Joseph interpreted the dream of the baker, and to the baker he said, you know, the Birds will pick at your flesh. That's like saying you're not going to be buried. So the punishment was repugnant, and the baker was not buried. Thus his soul did not find rest, according to these sources. So this is the last page, and I'm just going to read the thing off to the right, and that's in the box. Burning was done in order to not allow the deceased to find rest. The execution by burning, once again, the term is Ola offering or Holocaust, as you remember from World War II. The execution by burning was an atrocious deed meant to profane the dead person's memory. The act of burning came to prevent the deceased from being gathered to his kin in the underworld. This means that his spirit wandered aimlessly without finding a resting place and could not be resurrected. That's why Hitler used that particular method with the Jews. And that's why many over the years have used that method. So be wise as serpents and tame as doves, and keep in mind that there is a proper burial according to even the pagans and the godly, and it's thousands of years old now. And then there's also burning. So just be aware of that. Be aware of that. Burning the earth, redeeming the curse. That's my opinion. But I want to show you from Revelation 14 what's going on and see if this works with this Babylon issue. And another angel, a second followed, saying, Fallen, fallen is Babylon the Great, she who made all nations drink the wine of the passion of her sexual immorality. And another angel, a third, followed them, saying with a loud voice, if anyone worships the beast in his image and receives the mark on his forehead or on his hand, he will also drink the wine of God's wrath, poured full strength into the cup of his anger, and he will be tormented with fire and sulfur. So that's horrific, guys. That's unburied and fire and sulfur for merely taking the mark. Now, you could argue up until this time, no one has taken the mark because we haven't known what the mark is, and it hasn't really been tied to buying and selling. It could change in the near future here. So the rules of the relationship to God will change at some point in time. So you could argue it's grace and non-grace because, the people that take the mark, there is no grace. And I'm seeing some strange pastors coming out now and saying, it doesn't matter if you fall away from your faith and take the mark or anything like that, you can't lose your salvation. That flies in the face of Scripture time and time again. So just keep that in mind, okay? So tormented with fire and sulfur in the presence of holy angels and the presence of the Lamb, and the smoke of their torment goes up forever and ever, and they will have no rest day or night. These worshippers of the beast in his image, and whoever receives the mark of its name. Here is a call for the endurance of the saints. That's us, people that, hopefully all of us that are watching this video, and people that aren't yet the saints, but they will keep this in mind. Those who keep the commandments of God. That's Moses. Okay, it is. It's the same word in the Greek as in the Hebrew when I go back to the Septuagint. Okay, and their faith in Jesus. Okay, and I heard a voice from heaven saying, "Write this: Blessed are the dead who die in the Lord from now on. Blessed indeed." So you can see a demarcation going right there and there. Okay, blessed are the dead who die in the Lord from now on. I don't know exactly when that is in the Great Tribulation, but that's a serious time. That's a sea change. Time and date stamp. Says the Spirit, that they may rest from their labors, for their deeds follow them. That is deeds. It's faith, but it's deeds too. Okay. Then now let's go to Revelation 14 and finish out a couple more verses. Then another angel came out of the temple. That's the naos. That's not the temple. It's not a physical building. It is just the Holy of Holies in heaven. And he too had a sharp sickle. Another angel came out from the altar, and the angel who had authority over the fire. Remember I told you I was going to get to that? Yeah, there's an angel who has authority over the fire. I didn't know that. And he called out with a loud voice to the one who had the sharp sickle, "Put your sickle in to gather the clusters from the vine of the earth, for its grapes are ripe." So there is a harvesting point at some point in time, and it is intriguing that one of the angels who has the authority over fire. Think about that. Isn't that interesting? Okay, so he showed me Yehoshua the Cohen, the Haggadol, standing before the angel of Adonai with the accuser, so that's Satan, standing at his right to accuse him. And Adonai said to the accuser, Satan, "May Adonai rebuke you, accuser. Indeed, may Adonai, who has made Jerusalem his choice, rebuke you. Isn't this a man, a burning stick snatched from the fire?" So this is Zechariah 3. We've got basically a dream sequence going on from Zechariah, and we see the priest. He's wearing poop on his clothing, and Satan's accusing him for wearing poop on his clothing. So God, the angel of God, accuses the accuser of accusing. And so it's very interesting to see this play going on. But keep in mind, it's that burning stick, that burning, burning, burning. It does play through the theme throughout the Bible. Okay, so now let's continue on and let's try to link something that I'm finding, and let's see if you agree with me or not. Please make a comment if you agree or disagree. So, daughter of Babel, the Cohen is punished. So remember Adonai against the people of Edom, the day of Jerusalem's fall, how they cried out, tear it down, raise it to the ground, daughter of Bavel, so Babylon, you will be destroyed. A blessing on anyone who pays you back for the way you treated us, a blessing on anyone who seizes your babies and smashes them against a rock. So I'm arguing that if they'll be destroyed and burned and everything like that, that there's a connection to these these people that are destroyed here seem to be burned like daughters of a Babylonian Cohen. Okay, does that make sense? Hopefully, maybe not. So anyway, that's Psalm 137, 7 through 9. Very interesting, again, how the Psalms nails it so well. And then this is Isaiah 47. We're going to deal with more of Isaiah 47, but this is our second section on it. You saw one of the verses before. Come down and sit in the dust, you virgin. I highly doubt that. Daughter of Babel, sit on the ground, not a throne, daughters of Castim, which Castim would be like saying the necromancers, the mystics. No longer are you to be called dainty and delicate. Take the millstones and grind meal off your veil, strip off your skirt, uncover your legs, wade through the streams, show your private parts, they'll be exposed. Yes, your shame will be seen. I am going to take vengeance, and no one will stand in my way. So what I'm arguing based on the fire situation is that if you're a daughter of Babel, whether you're a male or female, you have earned fire. Okay? If you are a daughter of Zion, you're not going to get that. You're going to get the blessings. So let's look at Zechariah 9 and Zephaniah 3. Rejoice with all your heart, daughter of Zion. Shout out loud, daughter of Jerusalem. Look, your king is coming to you. He is righteous and he is victorious. That's Yeshua. Yet he is humble. He's riding on a donkey. Yes, on a lowly donkey's colt. Also you, by the blood of your covenant, I release your prisoners from the dungeon, the cistern that has no water in it. Okay, that sounds like the end of days and Yeshua returning. So obviously there's a special blessing for the daughter of Zion or the daughter of Jerusalem. Here's the same thing from Zephaniah 3. Similar. Sing, daughter of Zion, shout Israel, be glad and rejoice with all your heart, daughter of Jerusalem. Adonai has removed the judgments against you. He has expelled your enemy, the king of Israel. Adonai is right here with you. You no longer need to fear that anything bad will happen on that day. That's a bayom hahu, which is an idiom for that's the end day, that's the day of the Lord. So that's Zephaniah 3. So both of these match up. So we're going to go back again and see that these are both daughter of Babylon and burning and destruction and things like that. Daughter of Zion, Jerusalem, Israel, and you're blessed. Okay, so just see the contrast. There's only 2 verses of each, and those are the contrasts. And so now we move on to the players. So once again, the Antichrist, he is eventually an Ola offering. He is called a therion in the Greek, so he's an animal life of some sort. He's beastly, okay? And he is burnt, okay? And then the false prophet. We believe it's Pope Francis. He's an Ola offering too, and he's a therion, called a therion too in Revelation 13. Both of them in Revelation 13 are called therions. And therion is used so frequently in the Bible anyway. And so, but then, if it is Barack Obama, that is Gog, he's buried in Israel, he's earthborn, and he's treated quite well in death. Go figure. I don't know exactly what happens to the king angel of the abyss from the 5th trumpet in Revelation 9. He's 12 feet tall, people, according to 2 sources. And so we don't know what happens to the 9-foot horse-like locust from the abyss from Revelation 9 again. They've got all sorts of features that are interesting. It looks like most of these critters, so to speak, are destroyed during that final Armageddon battle, okay, with Gog. So I'm assuming that they'll be eaten by the birds and the animals of the field. And then the 200,000 cavalry soldiers from the 6th trumpet, which is Revelation 9 again. And so we'll see what happens, but they're eaten by birds. So the good people in the end times will be earthborn and should be buried. Now, they might be beheaded first, but they should be buried. So we'll see what happens. Now, keep in mind, Hitler wanted to burn people, but I think there will be more burials going on in the end. So we'll see. But basically, the 144,000, we see no death for them, but they are earthborn. Okay, the two witnesses, Moses and Eliyahu, I believe they were earthborn, but and God has the right to um, um, resurrect and give new bodies to whoever he wants to. So there's one death, but they probably, well, technically, if it's Moses and Eliyahu, that would be a second death for Moses, not Eliyahu. The Kedoshim, the Hagios, that's from many chapters, especially Revelation 13, 7 through 10. Those are earthborn people that are saints during the end times. And then the angels, they're heaven created, so they don't really die that we know of. I mean, God could burn them. He will burn the fallen angels. Then there's also these people during the Great Tribulation, the earthborn ones that are in between, and they have an ontological existence, and you get to choose what you want to do based on, I mean, in the Talmud 32b, Rosh Hashanah, it says that everybody is either righteous, evil, and the in-between have judgment suspended 10 more days until they can change their hearts until Yom Kippur, and then their fates are sealed. So it's hard to argue with that, because it seems like there's going to be a whole lot of in-between people going into the Great Tribulation. So we're supposed to preach to them. Okay, continuing on, we have the evidence again from this Natan, the 15-year-old kid from Israel that had a near-death experience, and he said Gog is Obama. And then Obama's done enough. And this is Adam Eliyahu Berkowitz citing Obama as being Gog-like again. So just keep in mind, he seems to match up, not Putin, even though Putin is in the news right now. This is Rebecca Sterling talking about Obama being Gog, being a major player during the end times. She doesn't specifically state Gog, but he is in the Antichrist. Okay, and she cites that everything took off towards the end times based on an Av 9, 2014 funeral. So that's almost exactly 7 years ago, because we're just about up to Tammuz 17, which starts the Dire Straits, and then so we're in Tammuz right now. Tammuz probably 5, 6, something like that. Av 9 would be the next month, and so that would be exactly 7 years ago that occurred. And she said that kicks it off. So maybe we've had 7 good years, and now we might get our 7 evil years. We'll see. So once again, I want to prove to you in the Bible from Ezekiel 39 that Gog is buried, and it shall come to pass in that day that he will give Gog a makom kaver. So a burial place, makom is the place. There in Israel, the valley of those who pass by, east of the Yam, the sea, and it shall block the path of the passerby, and there they shall bury Gog and all his multitude, and they shall come, and this multitude. So all of these other players seem to be buried, and call it Gay, so, the valley of Ham and Gog. And 7 months shall the bias Israel be burying them, and they shall make the land clean, biblically clean, tahor. And indeed, kol haaretz shall bury them. So the people, all the people, the people, and it shall give them renown. That day that I shall be glorified, says Adonai Hashem, and I shall set apart the Anshe, the Tamid, the regular detail of men, to work at passing through the earth, to bury those passing through. Those bodies remain upon the face of the earth, to make it tahor. That's an important word. For the whole of 7 months shall they make the search, to make it clean, to bury all of these filthy people. But they're still buried. They're not burned. Okay? And then one more time, just to state, many people, including Tom Horn, Chris Putnam, who's no longer with us, Sadhu Sundar Severage, and many other people, including myself, really believe that Pope Francis, and even many Catholics question this too, okay, that Pope Francis is the false prophet. So let's give you a couple more verses here, and then we're almost done. So the beast was taken captive, and with it the false prophet, who in its presence had done the miracles which he had used to deceive those who had received the mark of the beast, and those who had worshipped his image. And the beast and the false prophet were both thrown alive into the lake of fire that burns with sulfur. Revelation 19. Then Revelation 20, the adversary, Satan, is added in with them. He was hurled into the lake of fire where the beast and the false prophet were, that they might be tormented day and night forever and ever. Revelation 20:10. So we see that the three of them are burned. They are not buried. As always, I state that we're in the birth pangs. Seal 3 is increasing, guys. It really, really is. If you want to have food on hand, it's a wise idea, and be prepared for instances where you may not be able to have access to food. Tribulation is 3.5 years. Great tribulation is the last 3.5 years. Why does God burn the Satan, the false prophet, and the Antichrist, and then he buries Gog? Go figure. So I believe that we're heading up to Seal 4, and we'll discuss that in a little while here. I've got information on Seal 3, moving towards Seal 4, and we'll see if you agree with me when I bring that out. So once again, the seals look a lot like Matthew 24, and I believe that Seal 3 is dramatically increasing right now. We've already gone through Seal 1, Seal 2. And then I believe that we've got civil wars happening. Peace treaties are increasing. Deaths are hitting 1.9444 billion at some point in time. That's the fourth seal. The Pope has been doing some interesting things. He's forging agreements, the Abrahamic Accords and things like that. The Antichrist is going to be quiet. The daughter of Babylon faith is being pushed right now. There will be increased persecution against the believers, which will kick off martyrdom, and then Yeshua returns at the end. And the ones burned are the daughters of the Babylonian Cohen. I believe that. So we'll see. And so he's going to be burning even potentially angels. Satan was created as an angel. So keep in mind, these princes will have a lot more power as things ratchet up towards the end of days here. Seal 4 we mentioned. Seal 5 is martyrdom, and then Seal 6 after that. And so these are the big four from Seal 4, and I'm saying they're going to come from death, and death, but 4 different types. And you're already seeing some of the drought issues. Just check around you right now for the news reports on droughts. And so this is one man's opinion. This guy's Jerry Golden, and he's saying the smell was bad and the death was bad, and there are gangs of people carrying guns and knives and killing people, and once again the smell of death mixed with chemicals, almost impossible to keep your eyes open and breathing. This is a picture of winter, beginning of winter, cold and hungry, and hunger being killed by others too. So the death that's going to occur during the end days is going to be horrific. So I want to end it up with a few more things and a little bit of positive information. So what comes next? How do you properly bury 1.9444 billion people? And then how many believers will die during the fifth seal? If we live, we'll see Gog buried. We'll watch the Antichrist, the false prophet burn. We'll watch the birds and the animals eat Gog's army. We have to be witnesses. And then here's something positive about this. So for the woman that might have been accused of having an affair, she has the right, based on the sota of jealousies, that the man defames her and says she's slept around. Well, if her belly doesn't swell and her thigh doesn't waste away, then she isn't a curse to her people, and her husband is in big, big trouble. I will mention that personally, I didn't necessarily keep Torah back in 2006, 2007, but my wife of that time had her thigh waste away. It literally slipped away in 2007. And then over Sukkot of 2017, I had 3 dreams, and she had diverticulitis, and she had a certain section of her bowels removed. So her belly did swell. So just keep that in mind. And she did have an affair. There's no doubt about that. She never admitted it, but she did. She still lives with a guy. So keep your garments clean. It's a wedding coming up. And that is the end of it. I can't believe this was supposed to be a 20-minute video. Take care. God bless. If you have any opinions on this, on why some are buried and some are burned, I'd love to hear your opinions. Thank you. Good night. God bless.